The winter update is coming, and yes, I even felt like dressing up for today's show. The question is, when is this update going to drop? Will it drop like it usually does in the first week of March, or could it be just a bit earlier? My name is Daljit. Welcome to the show. On today's show, I'm going to be talking about the biggest issues in the game Football Manager 22. Now, if you have something to share with me, I stream 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays over on YouTube. You can always pop in and share your thoughts. And yes, we have a short little window to, say what we want to say to SI. Hopefully they pick up, and you never know, we could see some improvements to things that you might be particularly concerned about. This might be the first time you bought Football Manager, so you're probably wondering what the hell is a winter update. Well, basically, the game of football has got 2 transfer windows, right? So you've got the summer transfer window and the winter transfer window. So basically, a team can add players to their squad at either times. Now, when the game launches the first time, we've got the summer transfer window. When football goes through its winter transfer window, what SI or Sports Interactive do is they release an updated version of the game. It could have match engine changes. Definitely will have database changes to reflect all the winter transfers. This will not affect any long-term saves that you currently have. It only affects saves that you start. So if you want to take advantage of a new player at a different club, then you start a new save. If you have a long-term save that you currently enjoy, then stick with it. I do expect to see some changes to some leagues, some registrations. I expect to see some changes that are easy to do, like Portugal, Russia. There's fixture congestion in Portugal. There's a bit of under 22 registration issues in Russia. These are things I expect to see changed when the winter update comes. What about match engine changes? Now, when it comes to match engine changes, I don't expect to see any match engine changes. Why? During the beta, it was a bit of a crossing simulator. Inside forwards were going down the flanks and crossing too much and weren't using their preferred foot. Then when the game launched, I noticed some changes. I started seeing inside forwards using their preferred foot. I started seeing inside forwards outscoring round-outers and inverted wingers. Yes, the role is playing a bit differently, but you could say that about the whole game right now, because a lot of the roles are playing differently. The fullback is playing differently. The wingback is playing differently. The inverted wingback is playing differently. The poacher is playing differently. A lot of the roles are now playing uniquely, and I like that about the current match engine. I still feel that gegenpressing is very strong. You can play a game with a high line, high pressing, and you can go for it. The AI normally doesn't play super aggressive systems. Humans do. So whenever the AI is sitting back in a relatively simple mid-block, an aggressive system sometimes gets thrown by a ball over the top that gets behind the defensive line, and the AI goes on to score cheap goals. That is possible in the current match engine. So, should the match engine change? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Inverted winger, inside forward. Plenty of people, including me, were calling the beta a crossing simulator, because the inside forward was crossing more than it was scoring. SI made a couple of changes, and then suddenly, now after all the soak tests, the inside forward now is scoring a lot more than the inverted winger. He's gone back to the top. He is arriving in the space in between players inside that channel to score goals. People want to see more of the inside forward cutting in with the ball. If he fails, so be it. But this is the issue. That was what was happening last year. Every time the inside forward cut inside, he would cut inside all day long. If he failed to find a goal-scoring space, he would carry on running to that direction. So if he started on the right, he would dribble all the way to the left, end up on the left flank. Hey, he'll say hi to the other inside forward. Hey, guess what? I'm going to give you the ball and I'm going to run all the way back. That was what was happening last year, because once SI code it that way, he's always going to do it. And it's going to be a case of, why is this inside forward so stupid? The defenders are now closing the space and he's running out. Why doesn't he just go to the right and then become a winger, maybe draw some space, pull a player away, which happens in reality. In reality, teams learn not to show him that space, will close it up. he's forced to go wide or bring in another player to draw that fullback out of position. They're trying to meet these challenges so that they can make a more realistic game. And I feel that right now the inside forward is actually playing quite well. I took Liverpool out for a spin using this tactic. You know, I wanted to drive at teams and put them under lots of pressure. And Mo Salah, he didn't disappoint me one single bit. Yes, once in a while he does dribble for me. It doesn't happen all the time. You know, he does it once or twice in a game and I see some nice goals. So it's something I can accept. The issue is if we were to get him to cut inside with the ball once, he's going to do it all the time because that's the state of the engine. The engine doesn't adapt, right? So right now what I'm seeing is it decides, okay, I'm going to recalculate and okay, this space isn't open. I'm going to go and pass it to that player or I'm going to go to the flanks. We'll open up the space and somebody else can come in. Then I can go in by the side. You know, the way I see the movement right now, there's small little movements that are happening in the match engine that I wasn't seeing last year. There are issues with the match engine. Among them, I think one of the bigger issues that we are seeing right now is the unrealistic pass completion rate in the lower leagues. Some really good bug reports I've noticed in the forums as well. And this one is one of the best I've seen because it's a really, really well thought out bug report by a player. And it makes sense. And as I do admit that the numbers, like here, for example, League 2 stats, you can see the numbers 60% for the Sutton United, but the lowest is 86% here. So unrealistic passing numbers are definitely an issue in the current match engine. Will SI fix this? There's a butterfly effect in the game. If SI were to fix those numbers, how do they fix them? Where do they start? It is not as simple as telling a defender, hey, you know, let's reduce the his passing accuracy. Then it's going to have a knock-on effect on everything else. And that's the big challenge for SI. At the moment, I think this is a issue for SI because here we have SI telling us the game is a simulator. And there we have the numbers telling us, hey man, this ain't realistic. This ain't no simulator. This is fantasy, baby. So what do we have? Do you have a simulator or a fantasy? SI definitely need to address this. I honestly feel that it breaks the immersion level of the game if immersion is the big deal that I'm after, right? SI need to work on this because I think this takes a higher priority for me than the issue that we have with the inverted winger and the inside forward. I do think that game pressing is very OP and I'm hoping that SI make it a bit more expensive to use those systems because currently bombing down the flanks with very strong wingers and having target man kind of striker in the box, there is a big payoff for this when you're playing with the current match engine and you can take advantage of sides that give you space down the flanks. I mean, when I play against the AI, I see space on the flanks, I attack the flanks and I have a strong player in the box, I score. So is that a match engine exploit or is that just the way it should be? I leave that up to you to decide. There are things that I love about the current match engine and there are things I hate. I love the fact that there's distinction in the roles, that the roles under the hood have been made to play slightly differently this year. And I love the way that you can make a tactic sing a different song with a bit of change to the way the roles are set up. However, I have a big issue with set pieces. For example, whenever you create a throw-in routine, you need to remember that it only kicks in the final third. At any other place on the pitch, it follows your tactic. So if your tactic has got a flat structure, you can take advantage of it. So certain tactical shapes take advantage of open play throw-in routines because you are so flat, you draw the other team into a flat structure as well. And all you need is a player who likes to beat the offside trap and get into the opposition area and is very, very fast. He just breaks that line and goes on to score. And that is currently an issue in the current match engine, which is the reason why I feel that we need a new set piece creator as soon as possible. There are other issues with the set piece creator, namely UI issues that in turn lead to you creating a set piece routine inadvertently without anybody staying back on a corner routine. You take a corner and there's nobody in midfield defending it. So you end up in a situation where, hey, where are my fullbacks? While I think the calls for a new set piece creator are warranted, and I believe some of the developers inside of SI Towers also believe the same way, the sheer amount of work that's going to go into it precludes it from being introduced into the winter update. So I think that if the set piece improvements are coming, they're going to be minor. And I believe that if any new set piece creator is coming, it's going to be as early as FM24 or maybe even 23. If we're lucky, we might see it in 23. There is one exploit in the game that I expect to see addressed. It's huge. It's big. It's the transfer exploit bug. So basically, this is how it works. Essentially, you are changing the incoming transfer offers bid value to anything that you want. So if the club offers 20 million for your player, you are changing it to say 40, 50 million. Yes, this is an exploit. And it affects a lot of games, especially those in network play. And I expect to see this being addressed by SI. I don't think everything is doom and gloom in the game. I will address dynamic youth rating a bit later on the show. I just want to focus on a feature of the game that will see its return, so to speak, on FM22, and that feature is versus mode. I'm expecting versus mode to come exclusively for FMFC members. Now, what does this mean? This means that you need to be an FMFC member, and they're probably going to use that as a login for you to go into the game versus mode. Now, what exactly is versus mode? Basically, versus mode in Football Manager in the past was really simple. You could export any team from Football Manager and play with your friends. So you could be playing with a team in the year 2035 and you could export that team and play with your friends. And the interesting thing about it was the formats. We had a knockout cup, a league, and you could play with your friends. So this is what I expect to see, right? Because this game is not on FM Touch anymore. It's going to be in the full-featured version of Football Manager. So I expect it to share the full-featured versions of Football Manager. That's the first thing I expect to see. The second thing I expect to see is more modes. Now, currently in Fantasy Draft, we have 3 modes. So I expect versus mode to have 3 modes too, because it only makes sense. SI won't remove one mode, right? Will they? So we'll probably have 3 modes where we can play knockout and group, knockout, or league formats. We could all be playing with our different clubs in our own solo saves. We export that club because we believe that these are the best players for the tactical system that we have at that time. We bring that into a game with our friends and have a competition. No more drafting players, because in Fantasy Draft, the biggest drawback for some players new to the game is the long time it takes to draft. Now, with versus mode, you could easily create a competition for your friends who don't want to go through the time-consuming effort of drafting. They just, why don't you just give me Real Madrid? Okay, I'll take Liverpool. You take Man City. Yes, let's all play together. It'll be a lot of fun because it makes the game a lot more accessible to different kinds of people. So these are some of the updates I expect to see in the game. What updates do you want to see in the game? Let me know in the comments below. There are other improvements I would like to see in the game. I mean, now FMFC members are going to have access to versus mode. Does that, or could it be possible for us to have a ranking system that is displayed on FMFC as well? That would be a nice touch. And of course, yeah, let's not forget set pieces. Anybody has followed me long enough knows that I want the set piece creator to change. But I was really surprised that this year saw the introduction of dynamic youth rating. Now, I was a bit surprised with this addition to the game, and Zealand did a really interesting video. I liked it, even though I didn't like the thumbnail. He made some strong points. Some I agreed with, some I disagreed with. However, there is something that is to be said about the dynamic youth rating, which needs to be addressed. Now, what is dynamic youth rating? It simply is this: a nation's ability to generate new gens should change dynamically over time based on certain underlying factors. Okay. Now, let's get that out of the way. This is supposed to go up and down. I have no clue on how to use the editor. So I had to depend on another guy who knows the editor to feed me the information that he learned. He's really good with the editor. And he ran a soak test for about 100 years. And what he found out in the soak test was very significant. Dynamic youth rating in the game currently is dynamic. Yes, dynamic youth rating goes up for any nation that can be loaded in the game. So if the nation cannot be loaded, that dynamic youth rating is a number that, doesn't change for them. But notice my hand hasn't come down. The problem with dynamic youth rating is it doesn't come down. It goes up. It never comes down. So how is it dynamic? So so you've got countries going up. So England will stay at the top. I mean, let's just a hypothetical, right? So England 160 dynamic rating, they're always going to be 160, man. They never drop in. So China can go up, and China and England will be looking at each other, the dragon and the lion. They're looking at each other, it's still 160 because England ain't coming down. The problem is this, right? The dynamic youth rating needs to change. Nations, we should see the rise and fall of nations. Who knows? We could live in a fantastical world somewhere in the far future where Canada has produced all the Nugents. Everyone is going to be the next Alphonso Davies. They're all running. Canada is producing the best players in the world. The next Cristiano Ronaldo is a Canadian. And south of the border, over in the US of A, the Americans are furious. Private commercial enterprises has dumped billions of dollars into the nation's infrastructure, and they are powering up their Nugents over across the pond. All the money has left the UK's Premier League and shifted to the MLS. The MLS is now the most powerful football league in the world, and dominion of football has died in Europe. Yes, why not? I mean, seriously, can SI look that far into the future in the year 2100? They can't, right? But allow players some fantasy. That's all I'm asking. All right, because I have a soak test behind me. It's 2100. It's the same shenanigans. Okay, I get wonderful Nugents coming out, right? But there's no fantasy. No, spaceships haven't landed on planet Earth. Okay, I'm just asking that SI make dynamic youth rating dynamic, like the word it means. Okay. We don't want exponential growth. We want the ability to see them go down, go up, go down. Let's have some fun. It's a game after all. If those leagues that gave us the licenses are going to get upset with the game, let them be. I mean, I don't know. Are they? I don't think it's such a big deal anyway, right? Singapore doesn't really care. I don't know about the Premier League, but come on. Are they going to sue you for something that's happened in 2100? I mean, you do claim that the game is a simulator, right? So it simulates stuff, right? I mean, how far? I mean, it's not a crystal ball. Nobody can sue a crystal ball. I mean, like, have you ever gone to a fortune teller? You told me I was going to win the lucky draw. I didn't. I want my money back. You can't expect that kind of shit to happen, right? So, excuse the language. I just can't help myself. Oh man, this video was not supposed to go in this direction. It's becoming a comedy right now for me. Well, I mean, there are changes to the game. I think the winter update will be fantastic. I do think that, I mean, all I can ask from you is this, right? Okay, look, normally the winter update drops, March, first week. It closes, it's after the Chinese transfer window. We all know that, right? So we're used to it. But hey, let's have a surprise. The match engine isn't going to see many changes. You're trying to squeeze in as many database changes as possible, that we all know. Maybe tweaking a few leaks. There might be some current issues with the game here and there. All right. Why don't we just, first week of March? Let's not wait for the first week of March. Let's wait for the first week of February, or maybe the second week of February, and release the update. Come on, just release the update. It's just a match engine change. All I ask, match engine change, maybe a new update, right? All the European leagues, because we're only waiting for China. One country. The one country in the world is holding the rest of the global users of Football Manager. They're keeping us waiting. So let's just launch the game. Right? We don't have to wait for China. When China comes, we give the world a database update. Even the Chinese players are going to be happy. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in for today's show. I don't know why we ended up in this space. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you guys know where to find me. Please stay safe. Look after each other. And to all my Chinese friends out there, 恭喜发财，新年快乐。